Hi, thank you again and welcome. This is the second video of this series, Dataweave Library. All right. So here we will see the database project structure. When you create, you will see different the files and the structure which and the right. So let me go to one of the project which I had already created. Right. So if you once you create the project, uh, right, let me do for you from the beginning how we can create the Datawave project. uh, right. So let me close this, and here command palette, and then come and create create new library project, and then give your organization. Yeah, give your organization ID. So for your organization ID, you can go to your the Anypoint platform, select access management organization, and then click here. Right, it will give you a window from where you can select it. Right. So yeah, you can give your the organization ID, then give Dataweave library as an artifact ID. Version should be default, and then give DW library project demo, right? So once you give, it will ask you for project name, right? Where you can select your folder by going on the select folder option, and then give the folder, right? So I have already actually run these the steps. So you can just simply you can get this. All right. So you will get so once you create the your new project in Visual Studio Code for Datawave library, you will get this option, and it will take you to the new window and open your project. Right. Right. So here is a default the structure of the Datawave library project. Right. So it first create the my module and my mapping. There will be my mapping and my module by default, and so I am just taking you, and then you can add more files according to your needs, including your unit test cases, right? Your Datawave scenarios, dependencies. Right? I have my existing project, so you can see here the mapping file, right? So here is the hello world, which was created here in the module. So what is the difference between my module file and the mapping file? So module file is where you define your the Datawave, the functions, methods, variables, namespaces, types, and mapping is where you just give the multiple inputs and generate a single output. So that multiple inputs can be your methods or variables from the my modules, and then generate a hello world, right? Using that you can also use the Datawave run preview. Let me close this. So what does it mean exactly? So you can go here, right? You can go to the my mapping, right? And then preview it. So it will preview your hello world, right? You see here, right? So it is similar to the Dataweave playground, where you can just run and see whether the methods you have defined is working fine, so that you do not face any issues while publishing or consuming it, right? Similarly, I have created another method with a sum, which takes two arguments, parameters, and then sum it up and return the values, right? So let me run this for you rather than the hello method, hello world. I'm just going to use 1 and 5, right? And then run it. Yeah, because we have not saved it. So let me save it. You see here, right? The output is 6, right? Okay. Okay. Now come to this one, right? So on the mapping file, right? On the module, right? On the module, you created this, right? And then on module, you need to create a test case, right? So how can you create the test for your modules, right? I have already, right? So you can just click on it, and it will just add the create another file, my module test, right? I have already generated, right, the test file. But if you come here in your existing one, my module, right, and click on add, it will create the resource file, uh, right, my module test, right? And you see here it is testing with whether the hello world returns as an object, right? So, and if I click here, it will just add the another into the existing the module test, this method, right? Whether return something is as an object or not, right? So it will fail because it is not an object, and we will see how we can correct it later, right? So let's go to our no the checklist of your yeah. So we were discussing about no the Dataweave project structure, and this is how it looks like. Uh, your the source files and then the test files, each for your mapping and module. We will come to know the mapping files, how we can create mapping files for your Dataweave library. And the mapping file is not used for your for reusable. It is just for testing what you have created, the methods within module files, right? So you see here the SRC has two folders, main and test. So main has the mapping and module files, and test has test related files for your unit test cases, right? And you see here for resources, we will show you how you can create your the example data. And for your example data, then you can have the payload And then when you create a new test scenarios, like what I have created here, right? So you will have a payload and the output files. So payload will have this and the output will have this. So if I go here, right, uh, and your module files, right, it has some, but actually when you run your test cases, it is going to give the payload from here and right. You can just use payload and if you run this, because I have not tested it, sorry, I have not saved it, and that's why you are seeing this. So you see here, right? So both ways, either you see the payload or you give the hello world. You will get hello world, right? And then you have the different Dataweave dependencies. We will go through later, and the scenarios we will see later uh, during the course of the showing the different different the steps while doing the Dataweave library creation and publishing it to the exchange. Now we covered how to create a Dataweave project. So right, they create Dataweave module, right? So we have also seen how to create a Dataweave module, how to preview and then test a Dataweave module, right? So let me show you how can then test the Dataweave module, right? So here you can go and then try to run the, so let me tell you, select the your module, my module, and go here, right? Go to the testing tab, then select the run test, right? It is taking few minutes, right? So we ran the test module test, my module test cases created. And if you go through the logs here, so right, or the message generated for the in the console, you see here, right, the hello world should be something, right? So both the test cases, one for the hello world and another for the, so the last method failed because it was expecting, you see here, we are returning a string, whereas in our test, my module test, it is expecting as an object, right? So we have a, right, okay. So, but if we run it as a string, I think it should be working. So let me save it and then run it, right? Wait, hold on. Okay. So let me run this. And so you need to select the my module from the test folder, not from the main folder, right? And then you can, something is wrong, I think. Okay. Yeah. So you need to, yeah, let me run that. Yeah. So there is no error, right? So let me go through here. Not sure why it is. Yeah, why it is not taking. So it is taking the test from yeah. So you can select the my module test and go here, and it will come here all the test related files, my mapping test or my module test. You can click the my module test, and it will start doing executing the test for you. So you see here, right? Earlier there was some error here because it was checking the object, but when I just made it to a string, because this method is returning a string value. So all the test cases got executed successfully, right? So this is about the my module where you define the methods, and the my module test where you created your test cases by clicking on the add unit test cases. So here you can know the generate Dataweave documentation. So once you click it, it will just add the value for you. So I'm just going to add something here, right? Need added these lines of code as a part of your documentation. You can just beautify it, right? So you are passing nothing. So you can leave as it is, like return something is your method, right? As a source, and then something as your output, right? So this is about the modules and module test. We will see how we can create now the mapping files, right? So mapping files, right? The next step is how we can create now the mapping files. So I already shown you in my existing project, there are mapping files and the usage of it. But actually, how can you create it? You can follow the same command palette and select the new mapping file. Create new mapping files, and you can specify your file name, right? And press enter. So it created now this hello world, and you see here, right? And I just put it this to the hello world. So you can import this file uh, from my module, right? As my module, and then refer it hello world, right? So this is how you can create a my module file. and then link it or call no, your methods from my module to the my mapping, right? And then you can run it, right? You see here, it what is this? True. Okay. So something, not sure what is wrong. Okay. So this is how you can create the mapping file, and then you can use so here I have already created now the mapping file and it is working fine. Not sure what that error is, right? Okay. And then you can generate now the create mapping test, right? So by going here on the mapping file, there is an option here, Dataweave create mapping test. So once you create, it will create a new test scenarios for you. Right? Come here. Okay, there was an error in the mapping file. Okay. Import my module as MM. Okay. So once you know generate the click on create mapping test, right? So because it was giving error because I didn't save it and then try to uh, create mapping test, and it was giving some error. But when I saved it, it went, it worked fine and generated this resource file, right? The mapping.news test scenario. So here is an input and the output, right? So input and output does not have the same values, right? So, okay. And here is your mapping, right? DWL. So it created the input files and the output files. So it created, when I created the test, right? Let me just created the mapping test. It added a my mapping test file, and it also added these resources files. So this mapping file read the resources, the input resources, and the output, and then compare it, right? So if both are of okay, right? So this is going to give another error, right? So let me run the test cases here. Okay, save all. Okay, let me close this and then reopen it. Okay, so yeah, sometimes the you need to re-download the yeah the test related Java files. Right. So now it is coming, right? My mapping. And then if you run now the my mapping, you see here, right? Go to output and you see here. Yeah, they taste fast because the mapping test is testing now the input file and the output file from here. The input file and the output file, right? But in here, hello world. So hello world is, okay. Right. So the input is being taken from here, right? Hello world. And the output is being taken from the hello world. So if you notice, these both values are same, right? So, right here, what if I change the values? Right. So let me just put the payload here and then test it. Okay. It will throw an error, right? It thrown an error, right? Because this input value and this output is not the same one, right? It has, right? So because payload has this value, and once I change it to hello world, and then run this test again, it ran successfully, right? So it ran successfully, right? Okay. So these are the resources for the new test for the payload, right? And then output, right? When you run the generate the test cases for this, right? Let me go to my original project, which I had created. So, right. So the new test scenario has this for the mapping one. And this is the sample data, right? Input and sample one, right? So that sample data was created from here, right? Let me go to this one. Okay, we will go through that sample data, all right, later. Let's cover now the other topic, run and debug, right? Review Dataweave mapping. So here we can preview the Dataweave mapping. So we had already seen that, right? How we can preview and play around our the modules, methods in modules, right? In my mappings. Okay, so how we can run and debug, right? We have already covered now the taste data wave mapping. So we will see this time run and debug a data wave mapping. Okay, so here you see now the run mapping, now the link. You can simply click on it and place now the breakpoint, right? Okay, you see here, right? So you see here, right? It ran successfully, and you see here, right? It is giving this. No, let me run in once again. You see here, right? It is giving you now this value when you are running this method, right? So let me run once again for you, right? Uh, Run mapping. So you need to select the default one, right? Then you go and step into or a step. This one is for the step into, step out, and step over, right? So let me go into step into. Okay, and you see here, right, the value of this, right? So this is how you can know the debug, know your mapping files, right? Okay. Data wave dependencies, right? So if you come now to the project, you will see the data wave dependencies. You need to select your mapping file, and then you will see the database dependencies. These are all the dependencies that is required to run your or publish your the Dataweave library to Exchange, and you don't have to do anything. It is all taken care by the Visual Studio Code and Dataweave 2.0 beta extension for you, right? And deploy and Dataweave libraries, right? These are all the the scenarios. Scenarios meaning we created the mapping test cases, right? So this generated the test cases right here, module test cases, mapping test cases, right? So it creates, right? It created this payload and these output files, and this was created as a sample data. So I will show you how you can create a sample data. Go here and right? That option is not coming, right? Let me generate another mapping file. Okay. You see here, right? Define simple data, right? So once I click here, it will just create the simple data for you, right? This one is your simple data, right? Yeah. And you can use that simple data for this mapping file later, right? Okay. So this is what it means. Right. Now I'm going to publish now the Dataweave library to Exchange, and I will be publishing now my original project file. This one, right? I have made changes, right? Uh, so let me go to the Dataweave library uh, here in Exchange. And I have already published now the Dataweave library. But if you see, it does not have this method, right? Hello world sum, but does not have do something method, which I created in our latter example, right? Do something, right? Return something, right? It does not have this. So once I publish now this library to Exchange, it will have that, right? So let me go to the folder, the project. This was my project. So let me publish it. So before publishing it, you need to take care of something as a part of your configuration, setting changes in settings.xml or and POM file, right? So let me go here. So generate data with documentation. We have already seen that how we generated now the documentation for our methods, right? These are all the documentation we created, right? And update POM and settings.xml file. So what changes you are going to do in the POM file? Let me show you. This is the POM file. And so basically when you created your project, you gave your group ID as an organization ID, and then you given the other parameters, artifact ID, version, and the packaging or the name, project name, right? And you need to use the same, no, the organization ID, which you used here while publishing it. So there are two, yeah. So in your distribution management, you mention this repository, right? So this is required when you try to publish it. If this is not there in the POM file, you won't be able to publish it, and make sure that you have the correct organization ID, right? The another change was to add a repository, right? The same repository has to be there in the repository section with the same organization ID. Okay. In settings.xml, you are going to give your user ID and password, right? So of your Anypoint platform for that organization, right? And this is what you have to add, this piece of code in your settings.xml, right? And that is it. That is it. And this is required. This one was required because you need to consume your no, Dataweave library from the Exchange. So this repository is required within the repository section for the consuming the Dataweave, and this repository within the distribution management is required to publish your Dataweave library to Exchange, right? So I think let me do this. You have to simply ambient clean deploy, right? So you see the build is success, meaning the Dataweave library that we created is now successfully published to Exchange, right? And so let's go to the Dataweave, Exchange, and then see if the latest changes is there. Latest change is there, right? Let me refresh it. Okay. Yeah, you see here, return something is also here, which we added later during this session, right? And if you see the documentation, right, describe the return something purpose, and you see now the return something as in source and output is something, right? You can take some time and then beautify your documentation based on your need. This was just used for the demo purposes, right? So that you understand how we can and then modify the document, right? So let me go to the home, and you will see there is a module files, right? And the module file has all these, the methods, right? You can create and then go to each and every method from here, okay? Okay, right? You can then go to your new module. So it does not, because we never created it, right? And this is your module, and this one is our mapping files, right? My mapping. Okay. So thank you. This is the second video we have done for creating the library and creating the test cases, debugging, the mapping files, right? And creating the documentation and all that. So thank you for watching this. In the next video, we will see how we can consume this Dataweave library that we published into Exchange within your Mule application. So thank you again for watching this. If you like it, please subscribe it and share with your friends. Thank you.